Hello everyone, hope you're doing alright, hope you're keeping safe, hope you're keeping sane. Bit of a change of scenery today, the sun's come out, so what I thought I'd do is do a quick video outside to show you my new addiction. Yes, obviously this channel is all about addiction, it's all about my gambling addiction and associated problems, but today I want to show you something that I have become addicted to, and that is right behind me. There she is. That is my new addiction. What she is a 1998 Range Rover. Now, I appreciate this isn't a car channel, so what I want to do really is talk about why I'm showing you this car, why this relates to my gambling addiction, and why I think it's really relevant to my recovery. Now, there's three main reasons why I think that this car, let me just get inside, why this car is relevant to my gambling addiction. Now, the most obvious one is the one I will address first and foremost, and that is money. Now, whilst this isn't a super expensive car, and this certainly isn't me showing off or flexing, as the young people would say, that I've bought this particular Range Rover, money is a factor for all gamblers. I've always said that it's really not the driving factor for a gambling addiction, and it is often misinterpreted as one of the main factors, when really it's just a symptom. However, money is a problem that a lot of gambling addicts face. We don't have money to spend on normal things, and most of the time, because of our addiction, we don't have money to spend on our other interests, our other passions, and cars have always been a little bit of a passion of mine. I'm actually going to make a video about this car, so if you are interested, what I'll do is I'll stick it on a separate channel. I'll put a link in the description for that channel. There's probably nothing over there if you're watching this soon after I've recorded it. But pop over there, pop a subscription on, and when the video gets made, then I'll pop it on there, and maybe I'll make videos about my other cars and other bits and pieces as well. But when you're gambling, you don't often have money to splash out on your other interests, your other passions in life. And I've wanted one of these Range Rovers for kind of as long as I can remember, really, but because of my gambling addiction, I never bought one. However, a lot of you may have already thought of this. During a gambling addiction, you do have money, don't you? You're not always perpetually skint. And why aren't we perpetually skint? Because sometimes we win money. And certainly because, this is not a new 70, 80,000 pound Range Rover, there will have been times during my gambling addiction, even at my worst stage of gambling addiction, where I would have had the money available to me, normally in the case of a online casino withdrawal, that would have allowed me to buy such a vehicle. But I didn't, did I? And the reason I didn't, as we all know, is because if you are a gambling addict, if you have a problem with gambling, then you will allocate, psychologically, you will allocate money, particularly winnings, to further gambling. Your gambling brain, your addiction will not allow you to spend money on something like this or anything that you would otherwise enjoy, because it has earmarked that money for further gambling. It is no longer money in the truest sense. It is purely gambling tokens. It is purely a means by which to get your next fixed and to get your next hit of gambling. For this reason, this is why money loses all meaning to gamblers. The very point of money is that it is a purely liquid asset that can be exchanged for anything, any number of goods or services. But as gambling addicts, it is almost exclusively exchanged purely to feed our addiction. Why else do I want to talk about this car? Well, I want to talk about time, another side of the gambling addiction triangle. Because a lot of the pleasure I have deemed from this car is from the time I have spent on it. Now, as anyone who knows anything about old Land Rovers, and particularly old Range Rovers, will know, there is always something to do. There's always something that needs fixing, something that needs upgrading, or something that you can tinker with just to, as I'm trying to do with this one, bring it back to its original specification, its original state. But that is time that I would not have spent in the midst of my gambling addiction. Firstly, I would have been more limited in time, because what I would have been doing is spending that time gambling. So I wouldn't have been able to have so much free time to sit and tinker and sit and scrub the leather and, shine up the bodywork. It's an awful big car to polish this, I'll tell you that much. But I wouldn't have had the time to do it. Also, I wouldn't have had the motivation to do it. And why wouldn't I have had the motivation to do it? Well, now I will stand back from a distance and I will admire the job I've done on this car. I will sit and I will admire, I won't sit, but I'll probably stand and admire the paintwork that I've spent a long time restoring. I'll look and sit in the car like I'm doing now and sort of, just enjoy being in a nice environment that I have created through hard work and through elbow grease, really. But I wouldn't have done that when I was still in the midst of a gambling addiction. The reason I wouldn't have done that is because gambling would have provided me with a much quicker and much more instantaneous sense of gratification. It would have given me a much more instant hit of pleasure, of dopamine, and I wouldn't have had the patience. I wouldn't have had that staying power to do something like polish a Range Rover. I wouldn't have had I wouldn't have been able to do that. My ability to concentrate and focus on a long task was severely diminished. So whilst I now get pleasure from standing back and looking at the car and going, yeah, I did a really good job on that, I would have just dismissed that entirely, purely just to go away and go online, which takes 5 seconds, log on to an online casino, make a deposit, and crack on playing some slots, because that would have given me instant gratification. I've spoken before about doing hard things. And if we're talking physical effort, there is very little, trust me, I didn't realise this, but there's very little that takes more physical effort in my experience than polishing one of these things. But you do get the satisfaction. You get longer term satisfaction, because once you finish gambling, the dopamine dies down. I can now look out the front window of my house and see the job I've done on this car, and I get a hit of satisfaction. Now, I appreciate that a lot of people couldn't care less about cars. A lot of people are probably going, Phil, it's a 23-year-old Land Rover, what are you getting so excited about? And I understand that. If it's not your thing, then it's not your thing, but find your thing. And this is my third point. Gambling stopped me from finding my thing. I have always had an interest in older vehicles. I've always had an interest in buying interesting cars and tinkering around with them and messing about with them and, buying and selling and just enjoying different vehicles. But gambling took that from me because it became in the distant back of my brain. Gambling wouldn't allow me to take interest in other occupations and other hobbies and in other interests, because it was such a quick fix. Gambling was all encompassing, and actually it's taken me this long in recovery for me to start getting pleasure from other things. It's why it's taken me so long to buy one of these. Like I say, financially, you can pick these things up for, £1,000, 1,500 quid. I wouldn't, completely honest with you. If someone's flogging one of these for, that sort of money, then it's probably best avoided, but that's a job for another video. But what it did was stop me from even knowing myself and from knowing what else in life would give me pleasure. Because if I wanted a bit of a pick-me-up, if I wanted to enjoy myself, and I'll put that very much in inverted commas, then all I'd do is I'd log on, go online, and I'd gamble, or I'd go to the pub, drink beer, and gamble on the fruit machines, because that was the easiest way to, what I believed was the easiest route to pleasure. So what am I saying? What is the point of this video? And I will must stress it's really not to show off the car. It's just a visual representation, a prop, if you will. Well, my point of this video is I didn't know any forms of pleasure other than gambling whilst I was gambling. And it's taken a long time for me to realise that there are other ways to get the same hit, in a sense, the same enjoyment that I did from gambling. But you need to be free of it. You need to take a step back before you can start to regain that personal awareness, that awareness of what really makes you happy. And now every time I get in this car and I sit in it and I drive it, I feel special. It gives me something, it gives me a bit of a hit. And unlike gambling, where I do that once and I lose all my money, I can get in this car time and time again until it runs out of fuel or it breaks down, both of which are, fairly inevitable in the short-term future. but I can do that time and time again. And a hobby and an interest, be it this or be it anything else, will give you that. But you need to be clear of gambling to get the clear-headedness to find out what else in life you actually get pleasure from. It sounds massively like I've rambled, and like I say, I appreciate that these cars aren't everybody's cup of tea. If you do like, you know, cars, then you will know what I mean. I get the same pleasure from my convertible. Going out in that in the summer is absolutely lovely. Still a bit cold at the moment, but you can get that hit sort of time after time from a hobby, from an interest, and it's more repeatable, it's more sustainable than a gambling addiction, which ultimately will eventually take you for basically everything you've got. I hope this video makes sense. Thanks very much for watching as always. If you want to find out more about the car, click the link in the description below, and at some point I'll put a video on that channel. Until then, I will catch you next time. Have a good day, guys.